I don't think many people get to do what you just did. I'd like to kind of expand on that and share with the audience, as listeners, maybe a high-level plan of what you had and, kind of how you executed it, and what were maybe the top 2 or 3 things along the way that you would recommend everybody doing. Is what was most powerful and helped you the most?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me start on day one of starting my e-commerce company. I had not a great day at work and decided I wanted to do something different. And so when I launched my first e-commerce brand, I intended on leaving after 1 year. It is 4 years later, and I just did it. And so, good things take time. I tried to time my exit to where I wouldn't put my family in a pinch financially, and was able to grow and reinvest my profits in my business. And it took 4 years. And so, I would say, could you do it in a year? Yeah, you could. But I would say if you're a year into this and you're starting to feel discouraged, keep going. And that's something, I guess I'm just too stubborn to quit. I don't know, I guess I'm just bullheaded, and I was bound and determined to make this work, and it did. It does. I'm super excited about it. One thing as I've been approaching this day, one thing that I'll point out is I didn't necessarily draw a line in the sand and say, when I achieve revenue and net income of this, I'm going to leave. And instead, I said, I'm going to wait until the discomfort leaves. Right now, I don't feel, 6 months ago, I was unsure about whether it would work if I were to leave. Could the company sustain itself? I was uncomfortable, so I didn't do it. And what I realized is it's a leap of faith, leaving your job and going out on your own. And maybe the discomfort will end at some point, but it has not for me. I'm still a little uncomfortable, and that's okay. You always say it, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. And so that was something that I wish I would have done, is I would have, set a benchmark, and when I achieved it, I would leave. And so now, that said, let's dive into the numbers a little bit. And we've talked about this on previous shows, but I think it's worth rehashing, is from a net income standpoint, you are not trying to replace your salary only, right? If you do that, and then you leave your job and you're now drawing out the entire net income as a salary, you've got nothing left to reinvest into inventory and growth. And so what I did was, my goal was to replace my income by a factor of 3. I've heard some people say by a factor of 2. I'm very risk averse, so I went for a factor of 3. And what that allows me to do is draw a salary out of the business and continue to reinvest into new products and grow and scale my company. Because I like the size of my company now, but boy, would I love to 5 or 10 exit. And that's the goal, right? And so, that's something that I did. And so I would say the other thing was surrounding myself with like-minded individuals. And, in preparation for this episode, I went back and I listened to the episode that you did when you fired the man. And that was something that you really placed a lot of emphasis on. And that's huge. I mean, COVID has been an odd year in that, going to networking events and whatnot is not as doable, but, you're a great example of somebody that's been an inspiration to me, somebody that I can bounce ideas off of. I've always kind of felt like you're one step ahead of me in a lot of different areas, and learning from you has been tremendous. And I feel like we've learned from each other. And so, that's been something that's been really, really successful in helping me achieve this. I would say the last thing that I'll mention is having a supportive spouse. And supportive partner, supportive friend, whatever. If you were to take 2 individuals that were identical, say identical twins, same brain power, one had an MBA and one had a really supportive girlfriend or spouse or boyfriend or whatever, that was constantly encouraging them and letting them know that they could do it, that they believed in them, I would take that person over the MBA every day. And, I give a lot of credit to my wife. She has been tremendously helpful here and has been very encouraging throughout this whole process. And it hasn't been glamorous at times. Like, there have been times where we're taking laundry baskets of products to the post office and, staying up till 2 a.m. putting barcodes on products. And, our basement has looked like a warehouse for the last 2 years. And I mean, there's been a lot of sacrifice on her end. And I really appreciate her, like, reminding me what the goals are and just being very supportive. And so, anyway, that's long-winded explanation, but there's something about that.
Yeah, I definitely agree and think that's really, really powerful. So if you're listening out there, and not to say go pick a different partner, but if you don't have a partner and you're looking for one, try to find one that is super supportive, because I think that's a magical connection, and it's almost like a superpower. You reach out and get that. One other thing I want to circle back to, as you had mentioned, it takes time, right? Like, this has been a 4-year process for you, and you've kind of methodically planned this out, and it's like almost anything that I have found in business, if it's too good to be true, then it probably is. This doesn't happen overnight. This is a long process that it's a grind, and it takes time. But if you continue to play it out and just continue to put in the work, it'll be successful. It just takes time. I've seen that with my website traffic. I've seen that with my sales. I've seen just about anything. You just give it enough time, and it'll work out.
So, Ken, we had been talking about when I was going to leave, and I had said March 2021 was kind of when I thought I would be leaving, or like putting in my notice to leave. And I had a realization one day, and I kind of frantically called you. Like, I sent you a Skype message, and I want to get I felt like a kind of a crazy man that day, but I want to get, like, what was your reaction to that? And tell me about the call.
Yeah, sure. So, you normally, don't reach out frantic like that. And so I was like, well, something is important. I don't know what happened. There's an emergency or something. So we connected, and you're like, "Could you have a minute?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, what's going on? And you told me, and I'm like, "Holy shit!" And I'm like, I could tell from our conversation and from how hyped you were, like, you were so charged and energized, and I was like excited, and you were like, "I'm doing it." I'm like, "Hell yeah!" And so, like, that was it was super powerful when you had said that, and the way you said it, like, I knew like David is gonna bust through these walls, like, he is gonna just hard charge through there. So yeah, it was a pretty exciting moment to have that call.
Definitely. Yeah, I was, there was like a switch that flipped, and I told my wife, and I was jacked up. I was excited, and then I was like, I got to tell Kent, we have a podcast called Firing the Man. That's what I'm doing. I got to tell him. And so it was, from that point forward, I think the next day I put in my notice, or got the ball in motion, and it was just such a wonderful feeling. And so I have a lot of people to thank. I don't mean to make this sound like I did this all on my own, but there's a lot of early mornings where no one was up, and it was just me grinding away in my office, and a lot of weekends, and a lot of stuff that I've skipped and sacrifices I've made, and God, it just the feeling of satisfaction that I have right now is wonderful. And I don't mean to say this to gloat. It is to let our listeners know, like, those of you in the grind stage, keep grinding. It is the juice is worth the squeeze. It is such a good feeling, and it's more like the type of satisfaction you just hold on the inside. Like, obviously I was pretty pumped up the day I told you, but like, most of the satisfaction just is on the inside, and it's a wonderful feeling. And so 4 years, a lot of time, a lot of energy. But we did it, man. We did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I kick it back over to you to close out the show, I'd like to kind of mention one thing to the listeners and to the audience. David and I are just two normal guys doing our thing, and we're just kind of documenting our journey. And just a year ago, like this, none of this, David and I still had jobs, and so we're not smart. I'm not smart at all. David's pretty damn smart. I'm not that smart. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. So we're just two normal guys grinding away, and this is possible for anyone, absolutely anyone. Anyone listening to this, if you haven't started yet, get going, and if you're in the process, keep grinding, like David said, because this is possible to get your freedom, to take your freedom back, and support yourself and your family, and it's an amazing feeling. So David, I'm so excited this episode. It's pretty amazing. So you want to wrap up the show?
Yeah, absolutely. One last thought I have is during the 2021 goals episode, I announced this. I announced that this year I'm firing the man. And actually, when we did our 2020 goals episode, I had it written on my paper that I was going to fire the man, but I was scared to say it. And I think as a result, I did not fire the man in 2020. And so if there's something to this, just putting it out there and telling someone, this is my goal, it holds you accountable. And so to the listeners, if you want to establish a game plan and a roadmap for firing the man, or you simply just want to tell somebody, hey, this is my game plan, go to firingtheman.com, click on the microphone, and leave us a voicemail. And we'd love to follow up with you and potentially help you with that game plan and roadmap. When Ken and I both started this podcast, we worked for the man, but we have successfully fired the man, and are really excited for the next chapter. And so, but thanks for everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.